Okay, so we have a client here that's retrieving a list of widgets from a remote server, and we can create new ones. We can remove existing ones. Let's work on being able to edit one of these widgets. Right. So let's see. Here is the widget list component, the one that's iterating over all these widgets, and let's add a button here that is going to allow us to edit the widget. Okay. All right. So for instance, we'd like to be able to have a button, right, that toggles the state of the widget on saying whether I am editing or I'm not editing, right? So something like button editing or edit, right? There's the button edit. There it is. And once I'm done editing, I want to maybe render done, right? I like to be able to toggle between these two. Yes. Now, that state of knowing that a widget is being edited or not, right, is that worth letting anybody else know that this widget is being edited? Right. This is a perfect example of a widget perhaps having a local state, right, that doesn't interfere with anyone else. I know I don't need to propagate the state anywhere else, right? So I can just have it internally here, just for my purposes of toggling, looking pretty, or showing some internal behavior, right? So to do that, what we could do is have a state variable, that keeps track of whether I'm editing, right, and initialize it to false. Right? I'm not editing right now, right? And then we can use that to drive everything else. Okay. So, for instance, we could say if I'm editing, I'm going to show the done, and if I'm not editing, I'm going to show the edit button. Yes, right. So to do that, we could do as follows. We could put this inside of an expression. Right. I'm going to say if this dot state dot editing. If we're not editing. If we're not editing, end button, the edit button will render. Okay, or right, if I am editing, so this dot state dot editing, right, and button, right, then it'll show done. So notice that now edit is rendering. But if the editing is true, meaning I am editing, notice that it renders done. See that? Okay. All right. Excellent. So what I need to be able to do is manage the state locally without having to litter the state anywhere. The reducer doesn't need to know any of this, right? No other component needs to know any of this. So this is a perfect example of keeping the state as local as possible, right, and not needing to go anywhere. So it is okay to mix and match. Local state of a small component, right, without the need of involving the reducer sometimes. Yes. All right. So, for instance, what we could do here is that this button, right, we would like to be able to toggle these two. So we could say that if we click on the edit button, we're going to toggle the state to be whatever. We can negate it, right? We can toggle it. Right? So we could say. Maybe we could have a toggle function here. We can say toggle editing. It's going to be a function that what it does is that it's this dot set state, right? Does a says what's up with my syntax here? There we go. Editing is equal to whatever editing was. This dot state dot editing, it'll be negated. Everybody okay? All right. All right. So that's exactly what these functions are going to do. If I click on the edit button, I'm just going to call that function. So on click, and I'm going to call this dot toggle editing. right? And the same thing for my other button. Oops. Copy. Paste. So let's try that. So we click here, done. Notice that. So this is what we're changing this the state for all of them, right? They're rendering. So probably what we want to be able to do is have each individual button have its own little state, right? This is toggling for the entire list. So probably we want to move this whole thing into a separate component that has its own state internally, right? So let's do that. Right? So perhaps we're going to have another component down here. So instead of being the widget list component, this would be a widget list item component, right? So let's do that. We'll create here a widget list, and let's do that in the next video.